Yesterday, December 7th, 1941, a date which will live in infamy. The United States of America was suddenly and deliberately attacked by naval and air forces of the Empire of Japan.
The Niihau incident is an often overlooked in the entirety of Pearl Harbor and World War II as a whole. The incident is a fascinating tale of victory and treachery, and ultimately may have led to one of the most controversial aspects of the US response to World War II. Today we're going to be going over the Niihau incident and find out how a Japanese pilot went to war with a group of Hawaiians and the dark ending to it all. Our story begins during the immediate aftermath of the Japanese surprise attack on Pearl Harbor on December 7, 1941. Airman First Class Shigenori Nishikaichi of the Imperial Japanese Navy had to ditch his plane due to damage suffered during the attack. As per secret protocol, Shigenori began preparing for a crash landing on what the Japanese assumed to be an uninhabited island of Hawaii, the island of Niihau. What the Japanese did not know was the island was very much inhabited, albeit very isolated by native Hawaiians led by the owner of the island, Almer Robinson. The Robinson family story is for another time, but just know now that this is a privately owned island by the Robinson family that follows and respects long-standing Hawaiian traditions, and they speak primarily the language of Hawaiian. Back to our story, Airman Shigenori has crashed his A6M20 B11-120 on the island and has to await rescue by the Japanese fleet per the secret rescue plan. The island residents quickly found Shigenori and treated him very generously, even throwing a party in his honor that night. Due to the language gap and the isolation of the island, the residents were unaware of the recent attack on Pearl Harbor. Shigenori spoke limited English, so a request for another resident who spoke English was sent to try and communicate with him. The initial translator, Ishimatsu Shintani, strangely left with no explanation after a brief discussion with the airmen, so word was sent for another translator, Yoshio Harada, and his wife Irene Harada. Both members of the Harada family were of Japanese ancestry, but were born and raised on the island. Airman Shigenori told the Haradas of the attack on Pearl Harbor and that he wanted to retrieve his confidential military papers that had previously been confiscated by one of the island residents. The Haradas agreed to assist Shigenori in retrieving his papers and chose not to translate the news of the attack or who the airman truly was to the other island residents. Later that night, news of the attack on Pearl Harbor finally reached the island of Niihau via a battery-operated radio due to the island not having electricity. Finally understanding more of the situation and who their unexpected guest was, the residents were given the full story by Yoshio Harada. Strangely, after learning the news from Harada, the residents of the island permitted Airman Shigenori to stay with the Haradas, albeit with 5 guards to help keep an eye on him, while other island residents waited for Elmer Robinson, the island leader, to return and decide on next steps. The initial translator Shintani decided to assist the Haradas in an attempt to bribe another island resident for Shigenori's military papers, but the bribe was refused. While Shintani was out attempting the bribe, the Haradas and Airman Shigenori put on a new plan into action, attacking the lone guard watching over the family. They were able to overpower the man and locked him in a warehouse. In the process, the Haradas and Shigenori were able to acquire a pistol and a shotgun. Despite locking one of the guards in the warehouse, another one was able to escape the area and warn nearby villagers who ran into the woods and into the beaches, hiding from the new assailants. Now back at his plane, Airman Shigenori was able to retrieve a machine gun and ammo from the aircraft. He then proceeded to set the aircraft on fire, burning some of the confidential military documents with it, along with the plane. Another resident, Kaleo Hano, had escaped into the forest with the rest of the documents. With growing frustration, Airman Shigenori and the Haradas, who were still assisting Shigenori, captured 2 hostages, Ben and Ella Kanahile. With his new hostages as leverage, Shigenori forced Ben to search for Kaleo Hano, who still had the papers and was in hiding. Ben pretended to search but came back empty-handed. Airman Shigenori became increasingly agitated, realizing he was being tricked and deceived. With En and Ella now back together, they soon had a moment of opportunity. When Airman Shigenori was handing off the shotgun to Yoshio Harada, Ben attempted to grab the gun from the captors with the help of Ella. In the struggle, Ben was shot 3 times, but somehow managed to fling Shigenori into a stone wall, knocking him out cold. Ben then used a rock to beat Shigenori to death, and Harada, realizing defeat was on his hands, took his own life with a shotgun. Ben was later awarded a Purple Heart and Medal Merit for his efforts, with Ella unfortunately not receiving any recognition for her bravery or involvement. Military authorities from Kauai eventually reached the island and were given the remaining Japanese military documents and were shown the remnants of the aircraft, which was studied. The aftermath of the incident was widespread shock around the country. Americans were surprised that Americans of Japanese descent had so easily helped out the Japanese pilot after fully understanding the impact of the attack. This in part led to the establishment of Japanese internment camps in the United States during World War II, a very unfortunate decision that affected many innocent Japanese Americans during the war. The initial translator of Shintani was sent to one of these camps, as was the surviving Irene Harada. The story is a fascinating tale of what was seen as the first battle of the Pacific, where brave Hawaiian Islanders fought off the invader despite betrayal from 3 of their own. With that, the Niihau incident has joined the archive of everything. Let me know future ideas in the comments section that you want covered, leave a like, subscribe, and as always, this has been Matt, and I'll see you all real soon.